up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear with coaches Andrew, Berry, and myself, Scott McNally. We are joined by IFBB Pro Jason Theobald. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me out anytime.
It's a pleasure, dude. Guys, all of our programming is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK for high-quality, third-party tested supplements from a company that you can trust. We're brought to you by SupplementSource.ca. For Canadians, they have great deals that change week to week on label changes, closeouts, things like that. And thank you to everybody from Patreon. We're going to do another episode Q&A after this one, so you guys will be able to tune into that, and we're going to be tackling some of your Patreon questions. So anyway, I'm glad we could be here. Unfortunately, Skip couldn't make it. He's got some sort of dental emergency or something like that. But Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you, man, and let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, definitely. I was excited when I ran into Jason, aka Scooby, at the MI40 gym. Yeah. He had just done the Tampa Pro. And Jason, how'd you do at that show?
Tampa Pro, I won. I think there's maybe 20 guys, and then I did Worlds. I think there was 21. I got second. So I was trying to go out on a bang and get them both, but it didn't happen. But you know, that's how it goes.
And with that W, you are now qualified for the Masters Olympia. Is that correct?
I am.
That's
so
amazing.
that's in Tokyo coming up end of August, I guess, is what they're saying. So.
Okay, congratulations on that, man. And it was cool because, you know, I told you before that, you know, me and Phil are really close friends, and Phil was kind of helping you on the back end with peaking strategies and stuff. And in his group, he likes to share what he's doing and some of the decisions he's making. So it was really cool to watch your body already coming, you know, in great shape, but just kind of tighten up and dry out. And I feel like he made a lot of the right decisions for you. Did you want to mention that at all?
You know, I've known Phil for years. I was one of the ones that kind of pushed him to get his ass into coaching. You know, it's always great to have a second eye when you're in that peak week. I do my own prep. You know, I just have my wife kind of look at things and tell me to get harder, get leaner. But once you get to that final stage, even as seasoned as I am, you really need that second eye. And he's done this more than once for me. And so he steps right up, and it's really, really helpful.
That's awesome. So main reason I wanted to talk to you today, or that we wanted to talk to you, because I kept on hearing the Slingshot Method that you were using, or that you've titled. And basically we just want to know, what is it? How did you get in shape? And I also want to preface this because with the caveat that Jason's a guy that walks around with like a really good, solid condition in the off season. He doesn't get up to 30, 40 pounds out of shape. He's not having to do a 20, 25 week prep. So would you say you probably walk around like a 6 to 8 week outlook most of the time?
Yes, easily.
Okay.
Yeah, because the prep into Tampa was 7 weeks. And then when I did Tampa Pro 2020, I got ready in 4 weeks. And that's I was still doing the open, and I got 6th. And so, but listen, the divisions change. Divisions change, and it's morphing. And I don't know that look would have still got 6th then, but hey, it did then. So
well, let's go back even further real quick, because I feel like, wasn't there a pro show in Kentucky?
Yeah, I got second. Yeah,
I missed
the Olympia by 1 point. And the funny story of that is, I had done the Hurricane as my pro debut, and I got 5th in the open. And a guy who came down from the 212 Olympia, because that show was like a week after or 2 weeks after, he hopped into Classic to get his freaking qualification. The guy that got second did the Kentucky. So had that 212 or not dropped in, I doubt that guy who got first at the Kentucky would have done it, and I would have won. But hey, you know, it is what it is. You know, it's who shows up, right? I mean, that's a lot of bodybuilding. Who shows up and who did their work on that day. So
absolutely. You mentioned the Hurricane. That's actually this coming weekend. So it's always right around the Olympia time. So it's the qualification. Guys are still in shape. They're either right before the show, right afterwards, trying to snag the other guys a qualification when they're sleeping. But anyway, so you've had a good career already, and now you're going to the Masters Olympia. But tell us a little bit about your Slingshot Method, what it entails, like what you did.
So you guys can interrupt me at any time, because this might get long-winded, but I think we got to step back to February. I came down with shingles. And as we know, if you're getting that, you're probably not internally healthy. Something is going on. And so I will say this, I'm involved in 3 to 4 businesses. I don't run them all. I've got great people, but I do run Scooby Health. And I think I was just pushing too hard business-wise, still training hard, always keep my nutrition good, but I came down with shingles. And so I went and got my labs. And, you know, I do a lot of work with people who are dysfunctioned. And I'll be honest with you, you put so much effort into other people, you kind of let yours kind of go a little bit. And I was lean and my body seemed fine. So I'm like, I'll get around to it. Well, I got my labs and my insulin fasted was 16. And so for your listeners who out there, you really should be around 2 to 6 to be optimal, and definitely under 10. And you really want to be under 8. Well, for a guy who's lean and walking around, that really shouldn't be happening. And I do have, pre-diabetes in my family. And so that was a concern to me, of course. And then my A1C was like 5.6, right before that 5.7, where they start labeling you pre-diabetes. And my fasted glucose was like 112. My cortisol was 23. So we can see cortisol's elevated. And for your listeners who maybe don't understand this, when cortisol's up, norepinephrine's up. And so glucagon is signaling, and that's how you dump the sugars from your liver into the body. So you're constantly just dumping sugars. Well, that means my insulin's got to be constantly cranking, right? And so to really undo it, I had to be unstressed. But it was very difficult with everything I had going on to do that. So I'm like, how am I going to override this but get internally healthier and still try to work on my lifestyle, but it's going to take time. So I had already been doing a lot of work with weight loss resistant clients using semaglutide and tirzepatide. But I never touched it for bodybuilders, and I never touched it for myself. But I knew that GLP-1s lower glucagon so that your insulin can do what? Signal properly with eating. Well, that's what I needed. And so I could have sat and waited 6 months to try to get my stress down, or I could have used that. So that said, I also knew that I had mitochondrial dysfunction, the shingles, all these, how high my sugars were. So I don't know if you guys have ever used a Keto Mojo with your clients, but it tells you a lot. It gives you your blood glucose, but also gives you your blood ketones. And so I don't really care about the fasted glucose. It's really what's your fasted insulin like, and then second is what's your A1C. But fasted insulin is the biggest one, because you can have a good A1C and your fasted insulin is 25. I see it all the time with people. Yeah. It's cranking to push it. Eventually that's going to peter out, and then A1C goes whoosh. So anyways, I was taking my blood glucose, and after I'm eating, I'm at 120 2.5 hours later. That's not good. I should be in the 80s. And so that's dysfunction. And then when I'd take my ketones, I'd be 0.1. Well, the fat burns in the fame of the carb. That's how we are able to get lean, still having carbs in. Well, those ketones should be 0.3, 0.4 in a healthy person who's very metabolically flexible. I was getting L's on the machine, LO, and I was getting 0.1s. So I had straight up metabolic dysfunction, even though I was able to stay lean. And the way I explain that is because I have more muscle on my frame than I probably should have, if I was just not a bodybuilder. And I've lived the lifestyle since I was 18. So I was able to override it, or at least stay lean with my habits. But had I got fat, I wouldn't have been able to get it off with those numbers. There's no way.
Wow.
And so, I had this dysfunction going on, and I know there's things going on at the mitochondrial level. And I think you guys have done at least one show on that. And, it's more, as we learn more and more about the body, we can start to apply these things to the bodybuilder and to our bodies. And so, I'm not burning fats well within the mitochondria. That's obvious. And so the machine was telling me it. So I'm like, how do I get healthier? What do I do here that I can do this immediately rather than taking 6 months and still trying to battle my workload? Because I couldn't just get rid of all my clients. Like I've since taken about 50 less, but that was going to take time. And I'm not one to just say, hey, kick you to the curb. I'm going to wait till you drop off. So this is going to take time. So I started really diving into a lot of the biohacker basically modalities out there. And so, I started looking at the methylene blues. And methylene blue is something that really helps oxidative stress. Well, I was definitely under oxidative stress. I mean, if your mitochondria are not switching to burning fat, there's oxidative stress. And we know methylene blue lowers ROS, reactive oxygen species. And when you convert oxygen to energy, that is given off, that gives us, then we create antioxidants. But as we age and as processes get bogged down, that rises, that creates senescent cells. And that really, senescent cells lead to cancers, dementia. My dad died of Parkinsonism. He had dementia really bad at 73. So all these things are aging. What's that?
And just speeds up aging in general.
Thank you for tuning in. And if we are providing value to you today, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell. We have several bodybuilding podcasts that come out each week.
It does. Right. That's what ROS does. It's oxidative stress to the cell. So I'm like, man, I'm going to put this in. So I added methylene blue. I'm like, okay, I got to get that glucagon to stop signaling, but I know my cortisol is sky high. And so I'm going to use Tirzepatide, but I'm going to microdose it because I'm so worried about losing muscle, because we hear all these things, right? And I'll go back to that in a minute. And then I thought, okay, what else can I do here at my disposal? Well, I own an HRT clinic, so I got NAD plus in there. Okay. NAD plus helps you actually keep the cell integrity in place and actually burn fats and glycogen properly within the cell. So I brought that in. I had some other things at my disposal. I had rapamycin. Now, if you never use that, you low dose it and use it in like 6 to 8 week courses, and that pushes an autophagy state without having to fast. And so I was like, I don't want to fast right now, but really I probably should have, but I didn't. So I used that because I had access to it. So I had rapamycin in there. I had NAD plus, I had methylene blue, and I had my Tirzepatide low dosed, right? And so after 6 to 8 weeks, I put in low dose naltrexone because that I had access to, and that keeps inflammation down. And my HDL is not great. And we know that you can have poor cholesterol. If you have low inflammation, you're not going to plaque. It's the inflammation and the problem that causes to the arteries that sends the LDL to repair it, and then you get the coagulation. So I'm like, I'm going to have this in. So what I found was just eating my normal diet, I'm getting peeled. I'm getting bigger. And because I'm pushing that senescent cells and I'm pushing autophagy, because Tirzepatide actually pushes autophagy too, I'm bringing in new cells that have good hormones. And I'm on TRT and I'm growing. And I haven't changed my diet. And I'm like, man, this is badass. So I start posting pictures. I'm like, look at this shit. Like, this is pretty cool. And I really don't think you lose muscle on this stuff, especially if you microdose it. It's resting your beta cells. It's putting insulin out exactly when you need it to shuttle the carbs where you want them. And it's lowering inflammation and pushing autophagy. And we know autophagy clears senescent cells. How is that going to make you lose muscle? Well, if you go back to the study, the people were eating 500 calories and they weren't weight training.
Of course.
So
yeah.
It goes back to habits and weight training. It always does.
How did you feel at this point with like all that stuff? The whole cocktail. You physically felt different.
I felt amazing. Brain fog was gone. Now, a lot of that's from the inflammation and neuroinflammation leaving, but we also know methylene blue is great for neuroinflammation. And that's another reason I loved it, because what I just watched my dad go through. And so I felt amazing. Inflammation's coming down. My skin got clearer too. When my sugars are high, I notice that I get like folliculitis. It's not really pimples, but like the follicles get annoyed.
Yeah.
All my skin was looking flawless, and everything's tight, and I'm 47 years old. People are commenting on my skin and how I'm looking, and I'm growing, and I'm like, man, there's something to this. I was just trying to fix dysfunction because I didn't change my gear. I didn't change my diet. I mean, I always eat healthy, and that's the thing. I had this dysfunction, but I eat healthy. And so it's the stress. It's my stress and all the things I put on myself that was pushing this, but I wanted to get in there and get it fixed as fast as I could as I worked on my stress.
Yeah.
And so I felt absolutely amazing, and I'm getting leaner and leaner. Fast forward, we're on vacation, and Aria, my wife's getting ready for a show. And I'd already said I was retired. And I'm looking in the mirror. This had this huge full-length mirror. Whether you were taking a piss or where you were, you could see yourself in the bathroom. So I can see my back. And I'm like, I'm really pretty fucking lean, aren't I? And she's like, yeah, you should just do the show. And I'm like, well, I'm retired. I haven't really been bodybuilding that way or eating that way. She's like, it doesn't matter. You look really fucking good. So then I start sending a few pics to everyone else because your wife's going to tell you look good. And they're like, dude, like, you really stop in. Like, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I had 7 weeks. And rather than pulling the Tirzepatide out, because that's what I'd done for a few guys when they blasted off, thinking it would, they aren't going to hold muscle, they're going to lose muscle. I just left it in, and then I started to put the pads in, and then, I mean, it was just whoosh, and I would assume I gained probably 8 pounds, probably a lean tissue into that show. I never lost another pound of weight. I just got harder and harder, and there was no stress on me, so I didn't really care. Like how I was like, it's whatever. I'm giving it 7 weeks. If my weight doesn't drop, I'm just going to stay right here. I'm going to do my walking. I never had to do HIIT. I never had to do miss. I just walked, and that way I could train my balls off and train super hard. And
so let me ask you though,
would
you say this was like your easiest and most enjoyable prep?
100% easiest, because here's the thing: when you microdose Tirzepatide, you do lose that food noise, and you're not ever hangry. You're tired as fuck once you get peeled, and I had to take naps, but I was never hangry. And I got to eat sushi twice a week with my wife. And I still did it with rice. I did take the macros out. I said each one is 30 grams of carbs, 15 grams of protein. I got the lean ones, but I'd either do 2 or 3 rolls based on how I was feeling. We'd get edamame, and I'd get a salad with ginger on it, and I still got fucking peeled. I walked 90 minutes a day. 45 in the morning, 45 in the evening. And I trained 4 to 5 days a week. And by the time I got into Tampa, I was already eating 300 carbs and absolutely dry and peeled. And the cool thing was I left my Serostim in because I wasn't holding water. Because I was so efficient at shuttling everything, I didn't try my Serostim out till 2 days out.
Wow.
So I got to keep that in, which helped me stay fuller. You know, I have a few good body parts, but I have some white guy genetics too. And it's like that kept me rounder, right? And so it was the easiest prep ever. And I didn't stress peak week either. And I think that's partly with the Tirzepatide keeping the food noise down, but also that low dose naltrexone. For guys like me, it's amazing for your stress because you lose that noise where you're always second guessing yourself in anything you do. I'm never going to be a guy that's like, I'm the best. I'm always going to be like, am I doing good enough? Am I enough? Am I doing enough? And that can go into childhood and a whole other podcast. But that LDN helps quiet that brain noise because it gives you that opioid release. So this was the calmest I've ever been into anything. And you can talk to Phil. Any adjustment he made, he could see it. And, it probably made his job so much easier.
I saw it. I mean, I saw it like not real time, but like 20 minutes after you guys were making those conversation changes. He'd share the messages just so, you know, because he also wanted like a second set of eyes to see what he was doing. If we thought he was making, some of us were making the right decisions or he, you know, and dude, you just got harder and drier and harder and you look bigger by the end of the peak. You looked bigger, like noticeably bigger. Which is what I was really impressed with.
And I kept the Tirzepatide in till 2 days out. So I did a microdose on Monday and I did a microdose on Thursday. And a microdose for me at that point was 10 units. And for your listeners, 25 units is the lowest medical dose. So I'm still under medical dosing. And most of the prep, I was only doing 10 units. So like less than half of a medical dose. I only bumped it towards the end to get a little drier, and I definitely did. When I hit that Thursday dose, man, by Saturday I was harder.
Okay. So basically you got lean before you really started your prep. Like you were
I was already show shape just to get healthier mitochondria, just to get my insulin down. I retook my labs. My insulin went from 16 to 6 in 5 weeks. You can't do that. You can't do that just messing with diet and fucking HIIT and all that shit. You can't.
No. Okay.
And that's how quick I did it. So listen, I know that some people are going to say, well, you know, you should suffer and blah, blah, blah. And I still did, man. Trust me. I was down to 1,900 calories at first. But by the time I got into the show, I was eating 3,000 calories.
Yeah. I mean, anybody that's ever been in true contest shape knows, regardless of how you got there, when you're that lean, you're fairly miserable all the time. And it's not just the hunger, it's the low energy. Just getting off the couch to go and wash the dishes.
I still had all that. We had just redone the landscaping. And at first I was going out every night and watering it. And then I'm like, babe, I'm just beat. Like going out in that heat doesn't sound good. And she's like, yeah, just don't worry about it. It's fine. And everything, it was fine. But like, yeah, by the end, I was still taking naps every day. I was tired. I was dragging, but I never was hangry and I never had that food noise. And so that's really a beautiful thing. And it's a very, very low dose of it. And it really improved my labs. My A1C dropped by 0.3. So I think it came down to 5.2 and my insulin came to 6, which are all great numbers. And my postprandials were down to 85 from 120.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. I bet you could have done it without making all the changes you made, just by going like old school, grinding really hard, doing, you know, HIIT cardio, all that. But it probably wouldn't have been the same look. You know what I mean?
Grown in, I don't think. Because I was so dysfunctioned, there would have been at least 2 to 3 weeks of just grinding super low carb just to get even maybe potentially reset. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Let me counter that though, because I feel like you might have actually gone backwards because the whole
wouldn't
issue
have been as good.
Stress. The issue was stress to begin with, right?
Yep.
And just like adding, you know, what does a bodybuilder do when things aren't moving? Their first action is, I got to do more. I got to do it harder. I got to do it. So you add in a prep like mentality that might have drove your metabolic dysfunction even worse, and you might have been stuck in a standstill, trying to get out of a rut and never gotten into shape.
Or if not that, imagine regardless, even if it worked out, how it would be after. You know?
It's
now
good
what?
Yeah. Now my cortisol is 30 or 40. I'm going to go get it tomorrow and see where I'm at. I've really still the calmest I've felt in a long time. And I get certain pains when my cortisol is high. I don't have any of those. So I'm pretty sure that it's going to be in a really great number. And I'm looking forward to seeing where things come back. But it was a very interesting experiment. And now I've had a lot of clients reach out. I have a guy getting ready to do a show this weekend. His body's 49. It just wasn't responding the way he was used to. I posted pictures on my Instagram, what he looked like after 5 weeks together. And it's wild. And he says the best he looked. And I just repeated the formula.
Okay.
One of the common questions we get asked by you guys is, what would you do differently with your bodybuilding if you could go back in time? Given all the experience and education I have today, there's a number of things that I would have done differently. One of them is that I would have started using collagen sooner. Collagen is one of the few supplements that will actually rebuild connective tissue. It took me tearing my supraspinatus in 2021 to get with the program. I use True Nutrition's hydrolyzed beef collagen. I get the unflavored version. I pay for it myself just like you guys do. I use 20 grams a day, mix it into my coffee. It's totally unflavored. You don't even taste it. Plus, I use 10 grams of their micronized creatine. Creatine has been shown to improve brain health, especially for the aging brain. I need that. And of course, we've always known about the muscle building effects. So this is my morning routine every day, and I'm encouraging you guys to do the same. Use our code THINK for savings. Plus, it's the only way for them to know that this advertising is being heard. Otherwise, they just think you're some random dude that clicked on an ad.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
So, okay. So now, I mean, you mentioned your own clients, but are you having other people, like, previous non-clients reach out to you like, hey, I saw this transformation you did, or not even a transformation, but like you peaked yourself, you grew into a show. Do you have like new clients that are reaching out like, hey, and maybe they're in the same age demographic?
They are. A lot of them are in the same age demographic. I also had a female reach out that was behind in her prep. Her words, she came to me and I agreed. I thought she was behind, and she had only lost maybe 12 pounds in like 8 months, and then I got 10 off of her in 4 weeks doing it, and she won her pro card.
Nice.
That's awesome.
That's
awesome.
And that's the guy that's 5 weeks doing.
Yeah.
And then if you go down a little bit more, Scott, there should be a bodybuilder you can find. He looks a lot like me, to be honest with you. He's got a bald head.
Oh, I think I saw him. I was looking for pictures of you before the show, and I almost grabbed that. And I was like, oh, wait, that's not Jason.
Yeah, we look like brothers, except I got a little facial hair. But that before and after of his rear by in 5 weeks is mind blowing.
I'll find that. I'll pull that up in a minute.
Yeah.
Was it this guy?
So, yeah.
All right.
So if you swipe, you should be able to see his rear by was 5 weeks prior to contacting me.
Okay.
And so
let me ask you, Jason, do you like all the GLP ones, or are you like, do you like semaglutide?
Great question. I am not a big fan of semaglutide. It comes with a lot of hunger blunting. So if it's someone who is super hungry, that might be the best one for them. For me, a guy that struggles to eat, that is not for me. I tried it, even at a 10-unit dose, which is the lowest medical dosing. That's where they usually start people. So maybe I should have went 5. But in any event, I had reflux. I was full as hell. I couldn't eat. I didn't have a good experience with it, and some of my clients don't either. However, if you are someone who's a bottomless pit, that might be a great one for you. I love Tirzepatide. It's dual action between a GLP-1 and a GIP. So that one has a little bit less hunger blunting, and if you microdose it, you can eat, but it still pulls that noise away from you, and really allows you to still get your food in, but not have that hangry feeling.
Let's touch on the microdosing, because I had a client, I still have her, but several years ago, we started using Sema. And to me, and I think she might have been working with your clinic, and maybe you guys prescribed it. But to me, it just didn't make sense to do the bolus dosing once a week. And I was like, you know what? Let's break this up into microdoses. It just makes so much more sense to me to microdose, especially this product. And we started seeing we were actually able to cut the dose in half and and just microdose it every other day. I think that's what you were probably doing too.
I was doing twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay. And she got her pro card as well, in open bikini. But explain your thinking about the microdosing and how you stumbled on that.
Yeah. So I simply stumbled on it because even when I first started Tirzepatide, I had a little nausea. And I thought, well, why would I take this bolus dose when I could just spread it out? And if I'm not hitting as much at one time, I really shouldn't have these side effects that I don't want. And as soon as I did that, they went away.
Same.
So I just cut it down, cut it in half. So it was 5 and 5 units at first, and then it went to 10 and 10, and that was it. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. And those are very, very low doses. You know, where we see the problems with people are the people to get from a med spa and they don't eat, so they trash their metabolism, and then they have to keep pushing the dose up. And before you know it, they're on 5 mg of semaglutide. Now they have gastroparesis and they're complaining that the peptide doesn't work. That is the problem. You didn't learn high lifestyle. You didn't eat, so you've trashed your metabolism, and now you got to take more of it. And that's where we see the big problems. But the microdosing makes a ton of sense because it pulls down the side effects. And like you said, I even think you can take less of it because you're getting hit a little bit more instead of going like this. It's almost like, why take pellets, right? You know, when you spike and you do that, it's the same thing. Okay, we got this big bolus dose, huge side effects, and then by the time it wears off, people are starving or hungry and they don't know how to manage it. So that is, you know, what I think is probably the better way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's similar with like TRT. You know, like I don't like doing. You know, they used to prescribe an injection every 2 weeks of teston decanoate and some other things, but it just made more sense to microdose. Now let's talk a little bit about any negative side effects, because like some people have had issues with T3. If they were using T3, they found out that, oh man, I need to cut my dose like in half in some cases.
Let's talk about that. Why is that really a negative side effect? That's actually a bonus. When you pull down inflammation, because this does it amazingly. I use GLP-1s for autoimmune disease. People come to me and I put them in remission using GLP-1s, a little bit of methylene blue, NADs, etc. Proper diet. But if you're pulling down inflammation and pushing autophagy, senescent cells are going away. Well, senescent cells don't hear the hormones well. That's why if you ever had a client come to you, man, I went on T3, I went on TRT, I don't have good libido, I still ain't gaining muscle. Well, yeah, your hormones aren't. You got a problem at the cellular level. Well, these peptides push autophagy without having to fast. And so now these new cells come in and now they hear it. So now your T3 does have to come down, but that's a good thing.
Sorry. I meant more along those lines. Like it's an unexpected issue if someone doesn't understand that from day one.
And that's why my TRT started to do a better job. I was getting healthier at the cellular level. My hormones were now hearing it better, and my body started growing again.
That's why
I was in a cellular problem. I had a cellular problem. And so, that's why. But side effects, let's talk about it. So you got to take enough electrolytes. You're going to pee out more. Inflammation, right, is going away. So you're going to pee more. You're going to move water more. I think that's one of the reasons why I could take GH all the way to the show, was because with every meal, insulin's released properly. I'm pushing those glycogen out of the bloodstream. Inflammation staying low. I'm passing water all day. So you got to take electrolytes. So I was hitting our New Lights product from New Ethics, but it's the same, similar to Element, every two per day. Other sides, obviously, if you're not hungry, you've got to stay on your client to make sure they're eating. And I won't use these with anyone who doesn't have good lifestyle habits. They haven't proved to me right away. So, I always tell my people in my university, don't throw people on these. You got to build lifestyle. They might do well at just fixing their lifestyle. But if they're really cellular impaired, then you might need something like this. Or if they've got really bad cortisol and their lifestyle isn't going to change right away, maybe you need something like this. But if they don't have the habits, they're not going to eat. And then that's when you see muscle loss. That's when you see hair loss. So women will say, oh, that made me lose my hair. Well, then you talk to them, how often do you eat? Maybe one meal a day. And then it's like, 400 or 500 calories. Well, of course your hair is going to fall out. So those things are heard, but I don't really see them in practice at microdosing. The biggest thing I see is a little bit of nausea sometimes, people that just aren't hungry. And then lastly, you can get constipation. But if you work it in slow, I don't see that much as either. But you can get constipation with them because GLP-1 does slow down gastric emptying. Okay. So these are not products to be, if I got someone with SIBO, they're not going on this right away. I got people that aren't pooping. You're not going on this. And that's another problem with, clinics or salons just handing it out. You got people with gut issues. And then, now they got gastroparesis when they really just had SIBO or dysbiosis to begin with. Now it's a bigger problem because they've slowed down gastric emptying more. So these aren't something to, play around with lightly. You need to know what you're doing. But a coach can walk you through it, and you need to have good lifestyle habits before you use these things. So those are probably the 4 pitfalls I see with them.
Okay. Yeah, I think, all three of us probably have a lot of contest prep people, but we also have a lot of lifestyle people. And how would you, I guess, being a nutritionist, clinician, you own an HRT clinic, who would be the best candidate for maybe starting a protocol like this? Would you say someone needs to get their labs done right off the bat and see what's all, what kind of dysfunction are we working with? Are they someone that, like, because you alluded to a minute ago, you're not going to work with someone, or you're not going to put someone on these products that is eating once a day, goes to the gym every other week, has no cardio regimen. So just walk us through, like, what's the ideal person? Because I know a lot of our listeners are probably like perking up right now, like, this might be the missing key for me right now.
So, for at least my process, anyone that comes in the door, I have forms that I've created that allow me to say, you know what, you're a functional client, I need labs, and we got to see what's going on. Or it says, oh, you pass go, and if you want to build, you want to cut, great, you can go down that route. And those people that pass go always are training, they're always eating right, they've got all their shit in a row, right? So if you get down the functional area, and say, I see gut issues on your forms, I see you're not pooping, I see you're cold all the time, I see you're losing hair, brain fog, all these things to me add up, and I say, we got to dig in and see what's going on, so we get labs, right? And then I always try to, with diet, fix things first. So I use a lot of Mediterranean style eating. I might even put someone on a whole plant food based to pull down mTOR, because there's not much lysine and plant protein, and that will put them through mTOR without having to do the rapamycins, without having to do, pull them out of mTOR so they can go through autophagy. You can't go through autophagy if you're stuck in mTOR all the time. Bodybuilders, listen up. That's why I probably got in dysfunction. You got to deload, you got to put into caloric deficits, all those things, maybe even carnivore occasionally. But people with dysfunction are maybe a candidate after we've worked the functions and we get your nutrition right, we get you sleeping right, we get your water right. Someone who has, like I alluded to, really high cortisol in their life, they've got, say, 5 kids, they're the breadwinner. You can do all you want to try to get that stress down, but it might take months and months and months. Meanwhile, their inflammation is just rising because they're constantly dumping sugars. Those would be a great person while you're working on habits to put in, and that was me. That allowed that glucagon to come down so my insulin could signal right, drop that out, and get my inflammation down and get my insulin levels down. Other people, autoimmune conditions, they shine with that. Why? Pushes autophagy, lowers inflammation. Menopausal women shines with it. Why? Because menopause mimics autoimmune conditions. Once that estrogen drops out, big swings in estrogen mimics autoimmune. That's why birth control sucks. It swings that estrogen. And now they're puffy, they're brain fog, they can't lose weight. Same shit. Those people zoom well with it. But again, I'm not putting anyone on it till they've shown to me that they're willing to work the case with just nutrition, cardio, diet, and proper training, whether that means pulling them back or pushing them forward, whether they've been, couch potato Jane, or whether they were, CrossFit Mary and she's in there 6 days a week. But those are the kind of people where this might be something to do, but we got to work the case first. That's how I do it. I think that's the most moral way to do it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But one last person it shines with, bodybuilders who are stuck. Why? Because their cortisol is probably high as shit. They might not have time to deload for 2 weeks. We can bypass that glucagon and get that lowered so that they start releasing insulin again without waiting for that cortisol to come back down. I can say reps like no one's business because I know how to use these things. And I'll throw in methylene blue with them. I'll throw in NAD. I'll throw in a little L-carn. Now I've got fat shuttling in. I've got cellular integrity coming back. I've got autophagy cranking, inflammation's down, and insulin's timing right. All the things you need to get shredded. So
let's talk about a particular scenario. Like, for instance, you got a client, or someone's got a client, and they're 4 or 5 weeks out from the show, and they have more of like a 7 to 8 week outlook. And they've just been stuck for like 3 weeks, and they're doing an hour and a half, 2 hours of cardio a day. They've cycled carbs to where they're now like a lot of low 0 days. They're trying refeeds. They're trying all the tricks and all the things we might do. There's just not enough time to deload and take 2 weeks to feed up and pull the cardio and de-stress. Would you say that someone would be advantageous to try a little bit of this? And
that's what I did. That's what I did with Phil. I put him on a microdose of Terz. I put him on 40 mgs of methylene blue daily. I put him on NAD plus 33 units, which is about 100 mgs 5 times a week. And I had him on L-carn anytime he moved or did anything. And we started 10 units of Terz, and I think now we might be on 18. I think 10 and 8, as we hit it. And his body just zoomed. But other things I did. I pulled his cardio down to list. I wanted to get that miss and that hit out because that's stress. I put him on our cortis every 4 or 5 hours. So we bring down cortisol best we can and metabolize it at least. So we're working on that. Those were the main changes, but the cardio was the biggest piece because we got to keep him training. So I couldn't really pull back too hard on that. But cardio has changed. And then I moved carbs up actually. Fill out a little bit because now that you're going to be efficient, you can diet on more. That's going to upregulate the thyroid and bring thyroid back and support that. And I used a little bit of our thyroid boost to help give it some the micronutrients you need. But bringing them carbs back up now that we have a system that's working better, the thyroid starts kicking, so you can eat more. So now he ate more than he was at, and so all those things come into play, and you can work work it much better, and the body just starts kicking.
I like it. It's almost like you should teach a course on this.
I do. It's Scooby.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was kind of segueing into talking about your courses because I've taken several of your educational courses. They're well worth the money. What you walk out, even if you're an experienced prep coach, which I've always been, or I was when I took the courses. I learned 3 or 4 good things that allowed me to do more exploration and sharpen my tools up even more. So talk about your university.
So I have Scooby U1. We just launched on Kartra. That was taught live 10 times. And finally, I think everyone that could take it live did. And now it's moved to self-study. You got to take a quiz. It's supported by NASM, ISSA, all those things. That's going to teach you my system of how I work functional cases. Rest, flush, feed, and then work the functions. So you rest them, you flush them out, you feed them up, and then you work the functional issues on the labs, and then you go in for the cut. If that's not working, then you can do some fasting and feasting and Tirzepatides and things to probably because you got to reset the metabolism, the issues I was having, high sugars. So that is the Scooby U1. I also have the Scooby U cohort. It's only $50 a month. There's about 90 coaches in there. I literally get on and I answer your tough questions with a Loom, not just writing. And I do that daily. And we got about 90 people in there. It's a really cool thing. So if you can't afford a course, the course is $12.99. You might want to hop in the cohort because literally I answer questions daily and so do other coaches. Scooby U2 is going to launch in January. That's where you got to take Scooby U1 because you got to know RF3. And then I take that and apply it to the toughest cases I've worked. Like I've put colitis in remission. How did I do that? She was about to lose her colon. Psoriasis, and then weight loss resistance. And I teach a lot of the principles that I'm talking here. And then I teach my Slingshot. And then there's a few other modules. So that'll be dropping in January.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, like I said, guys, if you're even interested at all, it would not be money that's not well spent. You'll learn something. If you're a prep coach, even if you're just someone with functional issues and you're moderately interested in the topics, you're going to learn a lot.
We have people in there who are just like prospective clients who just want to learn because they don't have the money to hire a coach because the $50 is not much of a barrier to anyone.
Let me ask you about that. With the looms, does that go? Can everybody see your answers to particular questions? Oh wow, that's great.
Everyone, whether they answer the question or not, if you pay the $50, you can read the question and get the loom. Now, I've also loaded in courses. Some of them are free. Like I have an introduction to GLP-1 and microdosing. That's free. But I just did one on using the Keto Mojo and really breaking past weight loss resistance using fast and feed methods. You got to pay $25 for that. It's just a one-time fee. But yeah, I have free courses. I have paid courses. And then anyone can see answers to the questions in my looms.
That's so valuable. And people might not realize you've been doing this for a long time. I remember learning from you like literally 15 years ago at this point.
I've been at this 20 plus years now, I think, or at least 20. Yeah.
I had a question completely unrelated, well, related but unrelated. TRT clinics, HRT clinics. So you have a TRT clinic.
I do.
There's a lot of people out there right now that are looking for a place.
Yep.
I showed Andrew the other week. I'm working with this girl, and there might be some benefits in here somewhere. But she said, I'm going to get my lab work done. She did a very expensive panel through this place, and they literally gave her a bill for $10,000 worth of drugs and everything else she needs. Like she's in really, I think she was at like 175 when we started. A couple months later, now she's already down into like the 140s, and we're just using nutrition. She's doing better and better. Like all of her basic hormones and most of her sex hormones, like things weren't bad. My wife looked at her everything, and she's like, maybe through nutrition, a couple supplements, we can get this better. But they literally wanted to put her on everything under the sun. That terrifies me, man.
That pisses me off because it gives clinics like mine a bad name.
That's what I'm getting at is how can people know, what they're getting into? How can they find, obviously they can go to you, and what's the name of your clinic?
Advanced Vitality, HRT.com.
Okay.
And we have an IG, but anyone can DM me anytime. I answer every DM. It's not someone else. But my clinic's very affordable. So I'll just tell you some pricing. Anyone, and I have tons of coaches that just use us for labs because of our buying power. You can get a female panel that I teach in my functional course that I use myself for $235. The same one would be $700 on Private MD. It's got cortisol, CRP, all the hormones, even does like a test for Hashis, the TPO-AB, anything you would need. And then the male panel is $200. Anyone can use it. You don't have to become a patient. You can literally send an email to my coordinator. She'll get you checked out. You go to LabCorp, boom, you're done. If you want to become a patient, we don't charge per consult. So that $10,000 sounds crazy to me. If you're a female and you need 2 drugs, say you need progesterone and testosterone, that's going to be $200 a month. And that gives you 2 free labs for your checkups, and you don't pay for consults. You just show up, they'll read your labs, and then it's $200 a month. So it spreads out your payment for the labs and for your meds. But I've never heard of that kind of practice.
Jason,
that's crazy to me.
This site had a $500 a month membership to wasn't it called like the Buyers Club or something like that?
Something
Scott?
ridiculous like that.
To pay these exorbitant prices for their drugs that you could get from other clinics for half the cost. It was like a fool you kind of thing. Like we're so advanced.
So my question though,
go ahead.
I was gonna say my question though is, so if how can people know? Obviously, if they get a $10,000 bill after they get their blood drawn, they know that that's probably not a good idea. But how can people know that where they're going is going to be like a good place, a legit place, a place that actually cares about them?
Yeah, that's tough. I honestly think you need to rely on a recommendation or either knows the owners or trust someone who's talked about it and been through their service. Otherwise, you can get on a website and any website can look good, right? So, that's tough, right? People come to my clinic because they trust me and they know I'm educated, and I educate my NPs are functionally educated too. They know supplements. They know, like if someone has PCOS, you don't put them on testosterone. Well, these clinics don't know that shit.
Yeah.
They don't even know how to find it. So my gals and my team are trained in all that. But how do you know that? I guess you got to follow them and see what are their posts, how are they looking. But right off the website, I don't think you're going to know. I just don't. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer, but I really don't know until.
Here's how you know: if you get a bill for $10,000,
yeah, then it's too late.
And it's like you're working with them for 3 months. Like they're not doing brain surgery on you.
Yeah, and I had to talk to her too because it was like a good sales pitch. They made her feel like, oh, you're maybe not overturning all the stones that you could. You're not doing all the things you could. Your health is in a bad place, and this is all going to fix you. And it was like the testosterone was great.
It sounds like she's not a menopausal female, but I've seen a lot of hacks in that space. They put them on 3 hormones right away, and that's a shit show. You should work it in: progesterone, then testosterone, then if they need estradiol. But I see a lot of bad shit out there, and that's why I created it, because I finally was working so many tough cases. I didn't know where to take them, and I wanted them to be cared for, but also not be ripped off. And so our fees are very affordable. A lot of people have even said, I can't believe you don't charge per consult. We just don't. That's not how we do it. So,
yeah. Touching on, when they go and see a practitioner and they just immediately put them on test estrogen, progesterone, big thing I see with those patients that are working with other clinics is they put them on these doses and then they don't ask for follow-up labs like a month, 2 months later. Ooh. They just like, okay, see ya. We'll see you next year for your checkup. And then I'll pull them on
estradiol. There should at least be one in 8 weeks.
Yes.
Because estradiol is the hardest to dial in. Progesterone is pretty benign. You can buy that on Amazon, to be honest with you. Progon B is freaking progesterone. That one's pretty benign. It usually just calms them. If it's overdone, maybe they get a little puffy. But estradiol, if you're on that, you need a follow up probably in around 8 weeks to see what is really going on there. It's the toughest one to dial in for sure.
I would say testosterone too. I would say because sometimes you put a woman might be using like 2 milligrams of testosterone 3 times a week.
Yep.
You put those in 2 different women, that might shoot some woman up into like the 200s, and it might keep another woman right where she needs to be. So these blanket doses that they give people without following and checking up on them, that just seems crazy to me.
Yeah, it's very wild. And what we do at my clinic, so my vision is that in the future, everyone will have some sort of health coach, whether they're paying, a $50 fee like my cohort, or whether they actually have a personalized coach, and they're going to be able to work with their medical provider hand in hand. Okay. And that's where you get the best care. So I allow all coaches to sit in on all meetings with my NPs. Not all of them want to do it, but some of them do, and they learn a lot because then they learn to read labs. Yeah. So they're free. They're running to read labs for free. Yeah. But I let all coaches sit on all their clients' meetings. We have nothing to hide. We're not gouging anyone. We're not just throwing people on drugs. So we let coaches sit in. So I think that's where the care should go. That's where I think it's going and it should go. And that's my vision.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So going to slightly different area now, what does the rest of this year look like for you? As are you doing like a typical quote unquote bodybuilder off season? Are you staying tight but then still using these strategies? Let us know what this year looks like before you get ready for the Olympia.
So I've taken off Tirzepatide just to reset receptors. I think any drug your body gets used to. I'm still very lean. I posted a picture not long ago. I'm about 2 pounds above stage weight. I'm getting my labs tomorrow. And right now I'm working to make sure that my body is super flexible. So today I'm fasting. I'm 23 hours into my fast. I feel amazing. I just took my last ketone reading. It was 1. So I'm in ketosis after 20 some hours, which is awesome. So my flexibility looks there. Labs come back good. It's time to get down to business. But the last 6 weeks, right after the show, I guess just being older, I felt like I needed to pull back on training. I didn't feel like I was recovering as well. And maybe that's just the drop, the TRT. I don't know. But I was pretty lean too. And so I'm starting to feel pretty good. And my body seems very metabolically flexible. That's what I was testing. But I'm probably going to do some different stuff. I'm probably going to have some carnivore days. I'm probably going to have some whole plant food based days to really keep inflammation low, keep my body flexible, and just play around with little shit. If I'm not learning, it's no fun for me anymore. I feel like I've proven everything I need to prove in terms of on the stage, at least to myself. So there's going to be some different things going on. Like I said, today was a lot of ketones being thrown on my stories and people could watch me as I'm fasting. And so I'm going to be doing a lot of different little cool things to keep my body just here's the thing. I want to keep competing, but I need to stay healthy and I want to stay healthy. And if my blood glucose isn't good, if I'm not metabolizing food great, I'm going to pull back. I'm not going to be pounding food at all costs. It's just not worth it at 46.
Tell us a little bit about the plant-based diet stuff that you mentioned earlier. And that's something that might be a first ever on a hardcore bodybuilding channel that you brought up a plant-based diet. So I'm curious. I want to know more. Okay,
so here's the thing. You can still, the good thing about the diet is I'm not saying I would put someone on that especially as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
But when you go that route, leucine is very low. Okay. Now you're going to say, well, great, that sucks. You want to build but it takes me out of mTOR without fasting and it lowers my inflammation. And that allows autophagy in them cells to get cleared. And then as I up the gear, they're going to hear the hormones. Okay. So if you put these in at the right spots, 2 weeks, 1 week here and there, a little bit of fasting. Today I'm fasting. That's really pushing autophagy. I'm getting my body to a point where blood glucose is amazing. I got these great new cells. And then as I start sprinkling in the fun stuff, my body will take off.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't do that forever. Yeah. But it is a tool. And I've already proven that I will get dysfunctional with my sugars. That is a problem that I'm going to face. And as bodybuilders get older, they're going to face it too. And I honestly think that's why a lot of bodybuilders stop showing up because their gut gets out of control. And if you have type 2 diabetes, the belly starts to hang. Yeah. And that inflammation builds. And I can't allow that to happen in my class. So I have to keep that under control first and foremost. So, I think that's a lot of issues with guys aging. That belly starts to hang. I can name numerous bodybuilders who hung it up because they showed up and their gut looked like a turtle. Sure. And if they fix their inflammation and stop just pushing food and staying in mTOR all the time, they'd be healthier. And when it was time to push, they'd grow so much better.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense, man.
It makes so much sense. The hard part is convincing 200 whatever pound bodybuilder, hey, we're taking the next 10 days and we're using this approach. Well, what about how am I going to get my protein in? And or I'm not getting nearly as much protein, or I'm going to look a little flat in the gym. You know what I mean? All those pushbacks.
You know what's on the whole plant-based diet? I look amazing. Why? Because here's my macros: 140 protein, 500 carbs, 60 fats, and guess what? I get leaner. I get leaner. Because why? Inflammation's coming down, and so my sensitivity is good. I get leaner when I do that. I don't lose anything. I look round as can be because I got a million carbs coming in, but it's from great sources: beans, rice, brown rice, quinoa, berries, veggies, and I only do it occasionally. I'm not doing it always. It's to keep myself healthy. And then after this fast today, I'm going to do carnivore tomorrow. So that's going to be delicious. Lots of salmon, lots of eggs, lots of beef. And then I'll go back to a whole plant-based diet. I'll see what my labs are. And then I'll start working fish in, and then chicken. And then the carbs will come down a bit, and it'll balance out. And then I'll keep watching my blood sugars. If they shoot up, I got to reset. Reset. But the awesome part is when I fast, I work my vacuums, and man, they get awesome. And so that's going to help me this year because I got to have my vacuum, and I didn't have it this year, but I didn't get a chance to practice it. That's got to be there when I hit that Olympia stage. I got to be able to vacuum.
Yeah. That's cool. You've given me a lot of new things to think about, Jason.
That's why we do these, right?
Yeah, both my approach for myself, but also other people in a similar age demographic. And also kind of got me start thinking like in the contest prep, working some of this stuff in particular, especially when someone is having a hard time, say, controlling their midsection. So some good
I
stuff to think
have
about.
A super heavyweight right now who hired me specifically for that. So we're using Tirzepatide, we're clearing him out, we're pushing autophagy, and I'm having him do vacuums every day, and we're bringing that gut in. And then once we get him healthy and everything's good, then we're going to push off, and hopefully we get him on stage next year.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
He'll be peeled. I know that.
That's cool. Well, appreciate your time, man. I agree with Andrew too. You got me thinking in a couple of ways I wasn't thinking before. So I'll be going back to edit this. That means I get to watch it again. Everybody else at home can watch it again too. You guys just hit the play button one more time. I think this one's going to be worth going back to re-evaluate a couple times to pick more up out of it.
And your listeners too, I just did a podcast with Zach Trowbridge. It's going to be on Meadows channels. So I don't know if any of your listeners the Meadows channel, but that'll be there too. So.
Hell, nice. Yeah, I work on John's site as well still. So, I'll check that out. I think we should definitely plan to have Jason on again sometime, and maybe our listeners want to leave some cool questions that we can save for next time. I think that would be a fun breakdown.
That wouldn't be a bad idea, especially as things start to progress. See how you've, evolved between here and possibly into the prep further, or let's try to catch you before that because you still have a long time before the next show.
I do. I'll whenever, guys. I'll make time. I love this shit. I love talking it. I love studying. I'm just like anyone else out there. I've been doing this a long time, but I always like to learn, and that's what's kept me going forward. I think I can learn from everyone, even if they've been in the game 5 years. And some of the stuff I've learned are guys who are just getting into it, and they taught me things. So.
Yeah. I remember it was like probably 15, 20 years ago, and I was like, DIM. So I can use DIM to help with controlling estrogen. Like, I go all the way back. You had a product. What was the name of that product?
Rest.
Yes, that's what it was.
That was my first supplement line, and that became Estricort.
Okay. Yeah, I had so many girls that bought that back in the day. Like, that stuff was fantastic. Actually. Yeah.
I had Slingshot and Suppressed, and those were the flagships that I built New Ethics with, and then just kept on going.
Okay. Well, we'll be sure to put all your contact information below. I'll have your social media. They'll be able to link to, I'm sure, your link tree. And if they want to reach out for any type of things related with hormones, things with related to the university, anything else, supplements, they can reach out to you there. Man, this is an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jason.
Okay.
Guys, for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear with Jason Theobald and Andrew Berry, I'm Scott McNally. Of course, check out TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINK over there, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. Thank you to everybody from Patreon. Our next episode will be a Q&A. We'll tackle all your questions. Until then, we'll see you soon.